Hey everybody, Dave here from Dave Tries to Fix Stuff, the channel dedicated to the repair, restoration, and resurrection of broken stuff. And in this episode, I'm going to be featuring part 2 of my repair and restoration of this Lafayette U65RN solid state amplifier. We're going to go over the things that I did to get it repaired, the testing of some components that were in there, as well as all the cleaning up and stuff I did of it to make it look good again. So you want to see what I did to it? Stick around, I'll show you. Okay, so I am, it's the next day. I've been trying to rack my brain, but I'm trying to figure out a reason as to why this thing is not very loud and why it's not getting any distortion. And I am at a bit of a loss for it, but one idea I thought I would try is I've got several transistors on here, and of all of the 9 transistors I have, 2 of them are like the power transistors, and those are actually in the chassis that are attached to the chassis itself. They're down below, and I tried to test those yesterday, and those are the ones that seem to come out okay. I've got 2 that are these geranium ones. This one here, let's see if I can get them. This one right here is one. And there's also one just like that that's down here that's attached to the chassis for as a heat sink. Those 2 are for, this one down here on the heat sink is for the recovery of the reverb, and this one here is for the phase inverter. And then I've got 5 more transistors that are all the same. They are 2 SC536F transistors. I've got 5 of them in here. Of those 5, 2 of them are for the amplification of the preamp signal. And I'm trying to find them on here. You can see where it's got like right here where it says C, E, and B. That's collector, emitter, and base. Those are the 3 sections of these various transistors on here. It shows an NPN and as far as I can tell, shows it's good. Well, that one comes up as working as well. So shit. I'm at a bit of a loss. And oh my goodness, my daughter actually has a vacuum cleaner in her room next door. That is amazing. So far as I can tell, those are all working the way they're supposed to be working. There's only 2 transistors, one there and one there, in the preamp, and this one is works as like a, I don't know, to drive this thing for phase inversion for the last 2. So, somewhere though, it's like the tone is just getting, or the signal is just getting sucked out of this. You know what it might be? It could be this one here. Let me, because I pulled the other one and checked it for the reverb, but I didn't check that one. Let me check to see if that one's working correctly. I don't see why. I guess it would kind of have to be. These 2 are NPNs. That one's a PNP transistor. you know, I might have a situation here where I'm kind of out of my depth and won't be able to fix this. I might have to send this to someone else, which would be a shame. You know, I've said it many times before. I've said it, I think, before on this video. I'm not an expert. I'm somebody that looks this stuff up and tries to figure out, you know, how it works so that when it's broken I can fix it. And I'm not always able to figure stuff out adequately. So, alright, so it's been a few days since I've been working on this thing. Turn it off for a second. And I've been doing a lot of thinking on it because I'm trying to figure out what the issues are with this. There's still a couple of the same problems as before. One of them being that the tone knob seems to be wired backward. The other one is, I don't know if this reverb is sounding the way it's supposed to sound. I don't think it is. I need to try to figure the problem out with that. The fact that there is a lack of gain in the signal. I think there should be a lot more gain in this. And another thing too that I just discovered too, I'm going to turn this back on. You can hear it, but listen, none of these, I'll touch all the other controls, but when I touch the tone control, listen. So I don't know if there's maybe a slight short inside of this pot, or if there's something somehow, I don't know. There's a lot of little problems going on with this that I need to try to figure out to get this thing working back to the standard with which it should be working. But I pulled the transistors out of this thing, a couple of them, the ones in the preamp or in the, you know, the signal chain, and tested them, and they both appear to test working. The thing is that there's still a big lack of gain in the signal. I'm going to hook this tone generator back up because I want to see if I can figure out what the issue is here. So these three spots right here, these three connections, those are the three inputs from here, from the three jacks, okay? Okay, so that's what I thought. So what I'm doing is I'm putting this tone generator on each individual input. Kind of turn that reverb. I don't know if I can turn that reverb down. Good, I did. So you can hear it's going through each of them, and that's just barely with the volume barely up. If I give it actually any even just say put it up to 9 o'clock, let's say. Really, really loud. Now, the thing is, these are supposed to come in over to here, right? Now, here's the thing. And let me get the, oh, where's my, I need to find, you know, I need to go get my iPad. I'll be right back. You're looking here at the input. These are the three that you saw. These three right here. And those are the three resistors right there. Then those three resistors, maybe that's okay, maybe I am getting that backwards in. Maybe that's not the actual. Okay, so these three, actually it comes in here, doesn't it? Goes down there and attaches down to this one. That attaches down to this guy right here at the collector. So that's collector mid. Okay. That makes sense. Okay, so you know what's funny is I tested this transistor right here, and that appears to maybe not be the original or the first stage. Let's see, so if that comes up here, I am going to bet that this is actually the first stage transistor. This one appears to be the transistor, back this out a little bit, right here for the tremolo circuit. So this one right here, I think, is this one down here. So let me look at that. Let me see what I get coming into that then. Okay, I'm going to try this again. So turn the volume down a little bit. So that means if I get to this, okay, now we get it. So it should be that. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Now here's the thing. This might be where the problem is, because I've been looking for a transistor that is not working, that is not, you know, actually amplifying the signal. So I'm putting the input, or the signal, I'm sorry, onto the base. The base should be doing just what it's doing right there. The emitter shouldn't be getting anything. But here's the thing. The collector I guess maybe the reason it's doing that, because I would think that I should still be getting a bigger signal on that collector, but maybe the reason I'm not is because of the fact that going through this, it's actually amplifying that signal. And when I put it right to the collector, it allows it to go to the next gain stage, but it's not being amplified if I put it directly to the collector. So that does make sense. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to say that does appear to be working correctly. So what I need to do now is I need to take the board back out, because I had this particular transistor out as the second transistor in the preamp signal chain, and that may not be the right one either. It may be this one up here. Who knows? So maybe I do end up I've got a problem somewhere, but I'm not pulling the right transistors. So if we go back to this, so the C, when I'm touching it to the collector, I'm touching it right to that point right there. So it should be going through here, through the volume, through the tone control, through all this, and then to the next one there. So there's nothing amplifying beyond that point. So I should be theoretically getting, well, no, I guess the volume is why that's like that. Let me see what happens if I turn the volume up and do that on the C. So if I do C, do that on the... That might be why, because all this is shaping. Okay, so when I dime everything down here, I'm getting the same basic signal then. Okay, so that, I think that is the second transistor, and I think the transistors are working fine. So that means I need to come up with another reason as to why this signal is kind of weak here. One of the things I was thinking, first of all, I needed, one thing I should be doing, I haven't done this yet, it's stupid that I haven't, is I should be checking my voltages basically at a couple of these points, like the voltages between the emitter and the base, the voltage difference on both of these, because there needs to be like a 0.7 volt difference between those for those to be working properly. I want to check those. The other thing that I see is the fact that I do have a negative feedback loop, it looks like right here, coming in. And if either one of these is bad, and it's just allowing, or really like low in value, like if this one is actually gone bad, and the capacitor here, if it's actually gone bad and is just allowing like full signal to come through, or if this 50K has gone bad and it's allowing full signal to go through, that could be what is making the signal weak coming through. And the other thing is, it could be any bit of this right here. I mean, this is going to be fun. We're going to try to trace it, so we'll see. Let me start tracing, and I'll see what I can find. Okay, so I found something that is helping. And I've got this thing dimed out, so I took out the feedback resistor and the feedback capacitor, the negative feedback that was going in there, and it basically, well, you'll hear the difference. I'm going to dime it now. But you can hear the difference, because what I did was I still have the one side of the resistor in the circuit, and I took the other side out. I completely took out the capacitor. But one thing that I did was I put a alligator clip on the other side of that resistor, so that now when I turn it up, I get this. But when I reconnect the resistor back to the spot where it's supposed to go, it makes a change. So I'm thinking that the negative feedback in this is stifling the overall signal on this. But I'm not necessarily thinking I want to completely remove the negative feedback in this, just because the fact that sometimes it is good for it to be there. It does help cut down on noise, but if I'm going to be putting it that much into it, then I might, if I want that much crunch, I'm going to get that kind of noise anyway. But I'm thinking hook these two separate switches up to a single stereo plug switch, and having a negative feedback switch in the back right here, and just relabeling it. Because it's got two separate ones here, one tremolo, one reverb. And I'm thinking, why mess with that? Put it on one switch, and then I can, I'll just relabel them. That is a definite possibility. So let me think on that for a minute, and we'll come back. I'll decide if that's something I want to do or not. But I need to get this part's like hanging out here. I need to grab it. Let me think on that. I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so as I'm contemplating whether or not I want to put the negative feedback onto a switch, I came across these things, which would allow me to, I could make a foot switch for the tremolo and the reverb to go with this. I can switch one of the things in the back to the stereo plug, and then I can take the other one out and just put it on one of these. I was also thinking that I have, oops, sorry, I hit the camera. I'm also thinking that I've got this guy right here. This is actually a 500K, but it is got a switch built in. 500K is way too much for negative feedback. But one thing I can do is I can basically remove the resistor from the circuit and in its place I could put a wire from one end down to here, then the wire from this end to the wiper. Then I can put a resistor between the two lugs so that when I turn it on, there'll be a minimum amount of resistance regardless. And then as I turn it up, it can vary, you know, different amounts between that. So I'm thinking that might be a cool idea. And then I could just put this in that back hole, and then it'll be an adjustable negative feedback. In fact, I might be able to, if I put the 50K across there, let's see, let's do the math on that. What is it? It's A times B divided by A plus B. Is that what it is? So we'll get the calculator. I know A plus B would be 550K. So let's do 500 times 50 equals, and then divide that times 550. So it would basically be, if I put this through there and turned it up to max, it would be 45K essentially. And then as I turn this down, I'm guessing that would obviously lower the amount. So it'd be anywhere, and that would actually probably work pretty well, because then that negative feedback, because I've seen negative feedback usually in like the 22K range a lot of times. So that would actually, or I could just find another value. Let's see, what if I did 100 times 500? Oh, like I need to do the math on that anyway. Divided by 600 would be 83. So maybe what I would do is get 100K to put across this thing, and then that would be negative feedback from basically 0 up to 83K. So it would cover all those bases. I think that's what I'm probably going to do. All right, now the next thing I want to do is I'm going to look at the tone. I'm going to try something, the simplest thing I can think of, because like I said, this tone thing is, you go all the way clockwise and it's bass, and you go all the way counterclockwise and it's treble. But I'm wondering if I were to just to switch them, just to see what happens. I think I'm going to try that real quick just to see what it gives me tonally, and if it ends up working, great. If not, then I'll put them back where they were, and we'll try to figure out a better solution. So. Okay, so I changed around the two capacitors in here, and it didn't do anything. It's the way this thing is wired. I think it's just the makeup of the tone circuit itself, the little tone stack itself, is just making it to where it's getting fuller going clockwise as opposed to counterclockwise. You know, it's adding like a fullness to the overall signal, as opposed to just adjusting the tone. And I don't think, I mean, in switching them around like that, the thing is, there's, I don't even, let me see. Oh, oops, I will, because again, it's not, this is all the way to the bass side, all the way to the treble side. It's almost like it's just a mid boost a little bit there. So changing those things around didn't work. I didn't think it would, but didn't work, and it kind of took away basically all the power of the tone control. So I'm going to put those back. The only other thing I could think to do would be to remove this pot from the circuit board, and I can put a couple of wires onto the leads and switch the two leads on the other side, and then just, you know, twist the thing, put it in, and actually install it upside down, not attached to the board. That's the only other thing I can think of that would fix this problem. Or I could just live with having the bass be on the counterclockwise side and the treble being on the other side. I mean, there's worse things that could happen than having it be that. You know, I'll probably just end up doing that, because the rest of it is, I think, is a more trouble than it's worth. The only concern I have is the fact that I still get, when I touch this thing, I'm still getting interference. It sounds like interference in the signal. So let me get these changed back, and then I'll try to address that. So I got those back in, and it's back to working the way it was. Now, as you've heard before, the thing is, I don't know if there's anything I can even do with this reverb. When you get down to it, I don't know if there's anything I can do with this reverb. Simply because of the fact that this thing is... It could just be a really poor design, and it kind of is. I mean, it looks like the type of reverb you get in like an old Valco-made amp, where it's just it looks like it just got a couple of transducers at either end. It doesn't even have a reverb transformer, like a little output transformer to send the signal. It's basically, it looks like you've got a couple of transistors that are pushing the signal to this, and then you've got another transistor that's recovering. And I want to turn that off because I don't have the heat sinks on some of these transistors right now. But I'm going to, I want to look at this thing, and I want to see what it looks like in here, because if there's any way that I can make an adjustment to this tank to where it's not making that horrendous sound, because it's really, I mean, here, I'll turn it on just a second, because listen to, you can hear it's not, it's like, it's like it's not presenting a, and that might be the problem. Well, maybe that might be the problem. It's like it's not presenting a signal that's being put into it. It's like the signal is triggering it, but you know, I turn it on and I tap this thing like that, and all it seems like it's doing is that the signal that's coming in that's the sound that it's making. You know, as in like the signal coming in will trigger that, and that's all that it is, as opposed to actually recreating and reverbing the original signal. It's just being triggered to make that sound, and that's part of the problem. So maybe the input that's coming in is not, the signal's not being fed in the way it's supposed to be. Maybe that's part of the problem. But let me cut into this and see what we've got here. Okay, so here's what I'm going to try to do. I am going to go back to, oops, that's the wrong one. I'm going to go back to utilizing my signal generator, and I'm going to try to feed a signal directly into the input on this and see if that generates, because then the only signal that will come through should be the signal generator signal. Actually, I'll try it on the output first. Let's plug this in. First of all, we're going to test it. Yep. Ooh, it works. Okay. Okay. Oh, hear that? Okay, it would appear that this actually turned out to be kind of a simple solution. Without realizing it, I had flipped the thing on its side, the reverb tank on its side, and that, I think that was causing it to deaden some of the... I mean, it's still not a great sounding reverb, but it's not doing what it was doing earlier, which was it's like the input, the actual signal wasn't making it through, just like this weird funky chinking of the springs was making it through. Anywho, yeah, I think that that basically does it on this one. Let me get it buttoned back up, and then we'll I'll take it downstairs. And oh, I still got to clean the cabinet too. So I'll get this part buttoned back up. I will get the cabinet cleaned. Then we'll put everything back together, and we can get a tone demo on it. Okay, so I changed my mind again. I did actually add in this little negative feedback thing. I took the other thing and put it on a stereo plug. This one is, let's see, that all still works. And what I did was I just took a couple of wires, put them right into the circuit where the capacitor was before, ran the wires up here. I don't even know if you'll be able to see very well what I did, but I have it basically going through the switch first, and then from the other side of the switch to the wiper, I just put I didn't have I was going to start with like a 22K kind of a thing. I can always change that value later back up right to a 50K if I want to. Then I put 100K on here. So right now this goes basically from 50K or 15K upwards to about 100K total, because the 15 plus the 80 going through the 50, or the 100 going through the 50 makes about 80. The math is there. So it's basically anywhere from 15K up to 100K. But yeah, it's definitely got a lot more, it's a lot brighter without the negative feedback on it. Okay, so like I said, I'll go ahead and finish getting this thing, quick pan. I'll go ahead and finish getting this thing buttoned up and get the cabinet cleaned up, and then we'll get some tone samples. Alrighty, we'll be right back. Okay, so we've got everything completed on the amplifier now. Obviously, everything is in working order. I'm going to go through a couple of the controls right now. I've got my son here playing on guitar because he's a much better guitar player than I am, and he's going to do some demonstrations on this so we can get a gist of what the tones are like. So go ahead and strike a chord there, bud. And so you can go ahead and start playing. I'm going to mess around with these a little bit as we're going and kind of get the gist of what the sound is. Go ahead and slow chord real quick. Tremolo works really, really well. I'm going to turn it up a little bit now and kind of let the crunch come through a little bit. Oh, one of the things I wanted to show too, let me kind of get the beer out of the way. On the back here, yeah, so right here you can see that I changed out this reverb tremolo. There used to be reverb and tremolo had two separate foot switches. I put them both on a stereo jack here in the back, so I can just run one stereo cable to a foot switch. And then I use this other hole to do a negative feedback that's got on-off on it, and then it has a variation from basically 0 to around 100K on the pot. So that should give a lot of control over the amount of negative feedback and the amount of distortion and overdrive and all that's in the signal. In addition to that, also we've got this frequency control that I will demonstrate in just a couple minutes with when I'm doing some of the playing, or when I have my son doing some of the playing on here. I don't know if you could, I'll tell you what, here, go ahead and hit a chord right now. This is with the negative feedback completely off. So with the negative feedback completely off, it does have a little bit of a harshness to it. But I'm going to turn it on, but at a low setting. Or I'm sorry, at a really high setting. This is at a very high setting for it. Go ahead and hit a chord now. So you can hear at this very same volume, but with the negative feedback kind of at a high setting, it really has cleaned up the sound. And now I'm going to kind of adjust it to a slightly lower setting, and it's going to let a little bit more of the signal get held back from the negative feedback. Go ahead. And that's got a much more, you can kind of hear a little more of the harmonics in there. It's a little bit better. And do me a favor, go ahead and just lightly strum a chord for a few seconds, and I'm going to show you. I know it's going to be kind of difficult to hear on the camera, but there is a definite difference as far as the frequency on the speaker. I'm kind of rolling the high frequencies on and off on this speaker right now, so it's got a definite, there is a lot of control with this little rheostat on the back. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to let Alex play a little bit, and I got this kind of dialed into I think what will be a good sound, and I'll let him kind of play along with it and give a good demo on it, and we'll kind of call it at that point, and then I'll come back and join you in a second. I guess that pretty much does it for this episode. Thanks to my son Alex for playing guitar on that last clip. I'm going to pretty much call this project done at this point. There are a couple of things that I learned from this. The tone control is actually backwards. Again, you know, got to go counterclockwise for treble and clockwise for bass. I can't find any information on this at all on the internet as to why it would be like that. I did discover, looking at the schematic, that I think if I actually were to switch the large capacitor with one of the resistors in there, switch places with those, that might actually reverse that and make it to where I can go the right way on it. But I'm not going to worry about that right now. It's not that important to me. Just knowing how it works is good enough. The reverb on this thing is a funky sounding reverb. If I even used it at all, it would be just in the most sparing of amounts. It doesn't really do much for me. Tremolo is working great. Love it. Sounds good. And then putting on that modification in the back with the negative feedback being adjustable, I think that works just fine. So I'm happy with the way it turned out. I'm not real thrilled with the sound of the distortion in this and the overdrive on those. It doesn't quite sound as good in person as it sounded on the videos that I saw on this on YouTube and all that. So I would say that this is probably a much better amplifier for clean sounds with maybe just a hint of breakup. You know, moving into just a hint of breakup, it sounds good. I would imagine that this probably might take pedals really well. I didn't really want to do any pedals with this because that's not what this video is about. I may go back and revisit this particular amplifier in the future, hook a couple pedals up to it just for, you know, kicks and giggles and see how it sounds. And if that's the case, of course, I'll post online anything that I find on it if it sounds really good. If it ends up sounding like crap, there's really no point, but if it sounds good, I'll post something as a follow-up. So other than that, I want to say thanks for watching the video. Make sure you click subscribe, click like. If you have any comments for me, by all means leave them down below. Until next time though, I'm Dave. This is Dave Tries to Fix Stuff, and thanks for watching.